Friends, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, we walk into the influence of the constellation of Gemini. And that is what we're going to be speaking tonight in this third lesson on Hermetic astrology. By the time that we're done today, after speaking so much of Gemini, you're going to have a good understanding on what are the influences behind the natives of Gemini, what are the element, the stone, the metal, and the other things that we can learn to work for, so that we can make use of these cosmic forces and move more efficiently forward in this path of internal revolution of the consciousness and self-realization. We usually speak about the attributes of the signs towards the end, but in this case, we found it very appropriate to speak about all the details up front. So starting with the astrological correspondence of Gemini. Gemini rules from the period of May 20th, May 21st, somewhere around there, to the time frame of around June 21st, 22nd. And Gemini is an air sign. Air signs are the element of air, particularly among the air signs, speaks about the need for there to be dynamism, be dynamic in the way that they think, that they act, that they move. They like to displace themselves, change things. Being static is not something that they truly enjoy. And Gemini is also governed by the planet Mercury. Mercury, associated to Archangel Raphael, associated to the Greek god of wisdom, indicates that there is a significant influence in the intellect and reason when it comes to the natives of Gemini. But Gemini also has an anatomical domain. We know that the human being as a microcosmos, replicates the influences that exist above, following that principle correspondence. As above, so below. And the anatomical domain that we have learned, the Aries one is the one in the head, Taurus is in the creative larynx. For Gemini, Gemini governs the lungs, the bronchi, the arms, and the shoulders. So that moment as that light is descending from the head, Aries, into the throat, Taurus, and starts being distributed throughout the body, it distributes itself through the influences of Gemini. Again, the bronchi, the lungs, the arms, and the shoulders. And there are also esoteric correspondences. These esoteric correspondences of Gemini are associated to the stone, to the metal, to the color, to the influence. And we speak of the stone and we speak of the metal because just as we have learned in the transmigration of the souls, as these monads enter into this realm of dense substance, they always start in the mineral kingdom. And by the time it graduates, that mineral kingdom, it graduates in its height, that peak of that evolution for those that are in the influence of Gemini is the stones of beryl and gold. Now, the metal of Gemini is quicksilver. Quicksilver is elemental mercury. It is that metal of mercury that we know that is liquid at room temperature. And the color of Gemini is the color yellow. So how is it that you can benefit from knowing this? Well, if you are a native of Gemini, you can use, particularly, for example, these colors, if you are trying to do something like, let's say, Jinn practices, in which it is very convenient to dress yourself in yellow, but also yellow being a color of the intellect. If you're seeking to reach an internal state of tranquility and meditation, well, these are colors that allow for better resonance and harmony of those forces of nature within your own constitution. And the key word of the natives of Gemini is reason. And it is not uncommon to see the natives of Gemini trying to manage all of the things that have to do with the heart, not with the heart, but with the intellect. Let's look at what is the typical native of Gemini so that we can understand them better. That way, if your spouse, your significant other, your children, your parents are of this particular sign, maybe you yourself, well, you can see and understand many idiosyncrasies with a lot more clarity. First thing is that the natives of Gemini, they love to travel. We stated earlier that they are an element of air. And so they are influenced by the element of air. And just like the air breezes through and continues its motion, in that same way, they like to go from one place onto the next one. They like to solve all things with the intellect. And sometimes, well, in this place where we find ourselves today, that may be useful. But in reality, they find themselves doing this so consistently that it is common for them to negate the voice of the heart. That voice of the silence, when the innermost speaks, when the consciousness is the one that is speaking, well, they would rely more on the intellect than on the heart. That will tend to complicate many things. They're easy to anger. They are irritable, dynamic, versatile, and very intelligent. These natives of Gemini, that color yellow, that is also the color of the manifestation of the cosmic Christ within the crown of the tree of life. Well, that intelligence, that element of wisdom, well, it is very strong in them, provided that they also make an effort to develop it. Samael Aun tells us that the natives of Gemini live lives that are filled with many successes and many failures. And I want you to think for a moment on the law of the pendulum. More on that in a minute. They are of a crazy courage. They're very courageous. And Samael tells us you never know how a native of Gemini will respond because of their double personality. Now listen exactly to what he says. At any given moment, a native of Gemini will be a very sincere friend, capable of sacrificing his life for those to whom he has given his love. Yet, at any other moment, they are capable of the worst infamies against their loved ones. So, if that happens to be you, if that happens to be your significant other, your spouse, your children, now as you see this, now it's easier to understand that it is just nothing necessarily personal. This is just part of those astrological influences that, because we find ourselves governed by so many laws in a condition where the consciousness is just asleep, well, we're responding to those internal impulses without really understanding what is happening, and this is why they will react this way. So sometimes they will be exceedingly loving, and suddenly they will change and they will be offering their calumnies and their infamies. And Samael also tells us that in every sign of the zodiac, there are people who are of a superior nature, those who have been working consistently throughout their lives in this internal revolution of the consciousness. They find themselves up there. And there are then also many others, perhaps many others of us, who are in this other side of the spectrum. And when it comes to the natives of Gemini, Samael says, the inferior type of Gemini is dangerous, and therefore it is not advisable to befriend them. He says the worst defect of the natives of Gemini is their tendency to be judging people falsely, relying on the intellect in a condition where we today don't truly know ourselves. We see things, we tend to perceive certain things, we interpret them in ways that resonate with our own psychological aggregates, with our own defects, and without truly understanding what is the thing that we are perceiving. Then we don't understand the action, the judgment comes out, the judgment is incorrect, to ultimately show us that the thing that is being judged is the very same defect that we carry within. Defects that we have not seen, defects that we abhor so much that we have shoved them into the darkest, deepest areas of the subconscious. So this is a little bit of the natives of Gemini, and hopefully that gives you some really good understanding. But Gemini, translated, means twins. And everywhere we see the sign of Gemini, we see those two pillars. We see the images of these two men. And I would like to share with you a little bit on the story of Castor and Pollux. Castor and Pollux are the twins of the constellation Gemini. And there is a very profound teaching behind this brief story of Castor and Pollux. We find all of the fundamental elements of a pleromatic fall, of redemption, of self-sacrifice, of interventions of divinity to be able to see transformation. This is such a good story that we would like to share it with you. It so happens that Castor and Pollux are twin brothers that share of course, a common mother. Castor was the mortal son of the king Tyndareus of Sparta. Pollux was the immortal son of the god Zeus. And they were both children of the queen Leda of Sparta. And one day, the queen was close to this body of water, and a beautiful swan emerged. She sees the swan, and the swan, with its enchantment, with its beauty, seduces Leda, and Leda conceives Pollux. In this aspect of the story, we see the very same elements of an immaculate conception. In the story of Quetzalcoatl, when his mother, Chimalma, was working, sweeping the temple, there is this big ball of feathers that descends from the heavens. And as she reaches out to touch it, one of the feathers pricks her finger, and she becomes pregnant. We know about the story of Annunciation of Archangel Gabriel, where he descends and he speaks to Mary and says, "Behold, you will bear the Son of God." Immaculate conceptions. But here you see, Castor was mortal, son of the king Tyndareus of Sparta and the queen Leda, and Pollux, son of the god Zeus and the queen Leda. And these two brothers were inseparable. They loved each other profoundly, and they were always together. They were not only inseparable, they loved to go have adventures together, and they were also very skilled fighters. There are so many heroic deeds in which they partake and come together. And even though they were identical twins, they were identical in appearance, but because one was mortal and the other one was divine, their skills were different. Castor, the mortal one, was an expert horse tamer. Pollux, the divine one, was a master boxer. And there is so much beautiful symbolism behind this. Because if you ever, for example, see a horse in your dreams, well, a horse will always represent the physical body. And the one that conducts the horse, that jockey that takes that horse into that race of life, that is the innermost. And if Castor was an expert horse tamer, with the horse being a symbol of the physical body, that means that Castor, as a mortal, is the one who knows how to tame the physical form. He is the one that knows how to deal with this beast that we know that the moment that it comes out of balance, its internal elementals of air, water, fire, and air, once those elementals are out of equanimity and harmony, the body starts responding in very violent ways. So as a master horse tamer, he is the one who knows how to take the physical form and manage and mitigate the dangers in terms of life. It is the one that can help live life in the most pristine, aesthetic, and adequate forms. But Pollux was a master boxer. And as a boxer, well, it indicates that there are fights, battles. But we know that divine beings don't get into a ring to fight. As a master boxer, this is speaking here about the agility of the psychological judo. Of that judo of the mind that helps dominate those psychological aggregates. And also, they were brothers to Helen of Troy. Helen of Troy is a symbol of the spiritual soul. So them being brothers of the spiritual soul, it indicates that when we see Castor and Pollux as two aspects of the same thing, it is mortal and it is divine, united to the spiritual soul of the innermost. In one of their many adventures, Castor and Pollux, they were able to save the ship of Jason and the Argonauts from a devastating storm. And we spoke already that the key word for Gemini is reason. We spoke that they are very intelligent and that their color is yellow, also governed, influenced by the planet Mercury, that is the god of wisdom. So we can see here, no surprise, with Castor and Pollux being able to save a ship from sinking from stormy waters. Because those stormy waters are representative of our own creative waters in the condition that we are today, where we may be having a wonderful day and just some simple words from someone, something that we may see on the news or in some social media, could just stir those waters in such a way that our thoughts could go nonstop into random thoughts and violence and other things. That is the symbol of that devastating storm. And how is it that in their agility they can save the ship from sinking? In their adventures, when Helen was very young, Helen was kidnapped by Theseus, and they rescued their sister. The simple exercise of Castor and Pollux from rescuing their sister, is very similar to the story of the prince battling the dragon, moving in through that forest of dark, thorny bushes to go and rescue the Sleeping Beauty. Castor and Pollux save and rescue. They awake, in this case, the sister, not only as a symbol of the spiritual soul of the being, but also as a symbol of the human soul of our innermost that is asleep. That consciousness that is asleep, and Castor and Pollux, just like the prince, awaken that Sleeping Beauty. But they went through a pleromatic fall. That means that they fell from their divine state. And that divine state began with a dispute with a rival pair of twins. These two antithetical twins were of names Idas and Lynceus. Castor, Pollux, Idas, and Lynceus get into battle, and during the battle, Idas mortally wounds Castor. That mortal wound, of course, leads Castor to die, is similar to the death of Adam and Eve. We know that Adam and Eve did not die, but we know that they were expelled from paradise, which indicates that they lost all of their faculties. Death in the sense of losing all of their superior senses. Something similar happens here. Idas wounds Castor. Castor dies, but devastated by the death of Castor, with them always being together, living so many adventures, going into so many battles, doing so many heroic tasks together, Pollux invokes his father, the god Zeus, and he says, "Take my life. Rather than seeing my brother die, take my life so that he and I can continue to be together." What a beautiful example on what is the essence of the Savior that saves us. That supreme sacrifice that we see here from Pollux is a similar sacrifice that we see when the great Master of Masters incarnates and goes through that carnal sacrifice, dying on the cross, giving his life for others. And as Zeus sees this, of course, Zeus, a representation of our real being, the father of our innermost, he sees that that is an offering of supreme sacrifice, giving one's life for the lives of others. And what Zeus does is that it offers Pollux a cosmic compromise. And he says, you have something to choose. You can be immortal as a god of Olympus, or you can share your immortality with Castor. And in his profound love, he says, not interested in becoming a god of Olympus. This love that I have for my twin brother is so intense that I want to share my immortality. And that is exactly what Zeus does. So sharing his immortality, Castor goes from being dead to being alive. He goes from being mortal to being divine. And Castor, well, now has to live a life that swings in, just like the moods of the natives of Gemini, from one condition into the next one. One day he lives in Mount Olympus, and the next day he has to live in the underworld. And then the next day he comes back to Mount Olympus with the gods, and the next day he has to be once again in the underworld. And this meaning that for the rest of the time, Castor now lives half of his life in the Averno and half of his life in Olympus with Pollux. Zeus, recognizing this sacrifice, to honor their devotion, he places the two of them in the night sky as stars in the firmament. These two souls together right there in the doors of heaven, and they then become the constellation of Gemini. So much beautiful story and symbols behind this. And Samael has something interesting to say. In his writings on the Esoteric treatise of Hermetic astrology, Samael says, from an esoteric point of view, that means from an occult science point of view, we affirm that Castor and Pollux are twin souls, spiritual and human. But he further clarifies later as he writes the Zodiacal course. Samael says, the first woman that a man met in Eden is his twin soul. Soulmates keep meeting each other lifetime after lifetime. They leave Eden together and must return to Eden together. When karma separates them, they suffer immensely. And true marital happiness is only possible between two soulmates. Here we see the phenomena of the twin souls. One human soul, one spiritual soul. Of the innermost, souls that complement each other as we were expelled from paradise. So Castor and Pollux. Castor is the one of our immediate interest. The mortal one, just like we are in a mortal condition. He went from being dead to regaining life. From mortal to immortal. He goes on cycles from Olympus, the realm of the gods, to the underworld. That means that in Castor we see a part of him that has to perform in the realm of the gods as a divine being, and that as he spends that other time in the Averno, in hell, he has to be Luciferic in nature. This is a stark dualism. What Castor is showing us here is the battle of opposites. He is showing us the radical swing of the pendulum, going from senseless to senseful, going from a consciousness that is asleep in the underworld, to a consciousness that is awake in the realm of the gods. And these are exactly the attributes of the natives of Gemini. And the goal of the practices of Gemini that Samael shares with us is that of awakening the consciousness. And that is so that we can stop dreaming, so that we can learn to move consciously within that fifth dimension of nature, so that we can receive the teachings directly from the lips of the masters in the astral plane, so that we can learn to unfold consciously, leave the body sleeping, and move consciously within that fifth dimension of nature. But when it comes to unfolding in the astral body, Samael tells us this, which quite sure you'll understand as your own experience. There will be many who will find it difficult to exit, to unfold in their astral body at will. But in any case, the exercises of this Gemini lesson will inevitably awaken their consciousness. And thus, while their bodies sleep in their beds, they will also work consciously in the internal worlds. These exercises that we're going to share with you, we offer them to you, put them to practice so that you can start developing your ability to awaken in the internal world and unfold in your astral body. Because any person who has been able to awake their consciousness, they are in contact with the great masters of the White Lodge. They can visit the temples of that great fraternity, and they can speak directly with their internal Guru Deva, with their internal master. And certainly receiving all of these teachings from the lips of the masters is so much more significant and meaningful and better than anything that we can possibly offer here in this dense plane. So Samael shares with us this thing called the key of SOL. For those of you who know Spanish, Sol stands for the sun, but that is not what this means. Key of SOL is an acronym that stands for subject, the object, and the location. And in terms of what is this key, Samael is asking us to learn to consciously split our attention in three. Now, this is not an intellectual exercise. Trying to be thinking as if you were processing code in your head to focus on this and that and this at the same time, it becomes too taxing. It is too mentally exhausting. This exercise on the key of SOL is meant to be an exercise of the consciousness. This is something that the consciousness is able to perceive in an instant. And it seeks to have that consciousness, that fraction of the innermost that exists within you, that thing that you can work with to transform yourself and fabricate the superior existential bodies and revolutionize your consciousness. To focus on the thing that is experiencing and where you are, all at the same time. Let's start with the subject. We seek to sustain the remembrance of self before any representation of the mind. Samael says, every thought, every emotion, every moment, every instinctive action, every sexual impulse must be self-observed immediately. And so this is why he speaks about the necessity to awaken from moment to moment, to live from instant to instant. And what is being sought here from the consciousness is that the moment that that weird thought shows up, that it can perceive it and say, what's that? That the moment that it perceives an emotion, that the moment that it feels it, that it can say, from where is that coming from? That every time that you find yourself compulsively shaking your leg or your hand, or that the consciousness is there saying, why is the creative energy going into this place? You see? These are things that the consciousness can perceive instantaneously, but it's looking at it from its own, as if you were contemplating from the center of your heart outward into this microcosm, what is happening in the thought, what is happening in the physical, what is happening with the creative energies, what is happening instinctively, all of that, it can perceive it. And as it perceives that, on that constant state of contemplation, the consciousness also able to perceive the object. What is the object? Well, the object is everything, every representation, every fact, every event, no matter how insignificant it may be. Sometimes we find ourselves in a state of dream And as you are in your dreams, you know that you are in your house. But as you look at the walls may have holes. You don't do anything about it. You may live in a one-story home, but somehow in that dream, the house has stairs. And you may go up or down the stairs. And you may say, this is strange, but nothing really happens. You may find in your dreams the presence of somebody very loved to you. A grandparent, a parent, a child, somebody who has passed. And you see them and you hug them and you talk to them. And you're happy that you're there with them, but you don't find that strange, you see? That is this type of object. The consciousness must be able to help perceive in detail all of these representations. Samael shares a very interesting story when he says that one day he finds himself walking into the office of a lawyer. And as he goes in, well, there are books and there are shelves and bookshelves and there's a big desk and the secretary, lawyer's administrative person, assistant is right there working. And he speaks to her and she tells him to sit and wait. And Samael says that everything looked normal as it does in the physical plane. But as he starts contemplating the desk, he notices that there is a glass figurine of a butterfly. Very delicate, intricate figurine. And the figurine started moving its wings. Samael said, wait a minute. What's happening here? He excused himself. He walked outside. He leapt with the intent of floating, and he found himself floating because he was in the fifth dimension, in the astral plane. He comes back and he tells the lady, you're asleep. Your body is somewhere in your house sleeping. Try to wake up. And he says that as much as he tried, he could not wake her up. So he gave her thanks. He walked outside, leapt, remained floating, because in that fifth dimension, the law of levitation applies, and moved on into the airs of mystery. So we must be observant of all of these things so that we can help then determine where exactly are we? Where am I? Why am I here? This is the type of stuff that we need to learn to ask ourselves. Where am I? Why am I here? Consciousness perceives how you feel, how you feel in terms of emotion, what is happening in the realm of the mind. It perceives what is happening with the physical body. It perceives these things around you. You're asking yourself, where am I? These three aspects of the division of the attention satisfy the fundamental tenets of the law of the Triyamashikamno. And that law of the three enables always a creation. The creation that comes from this is that of an awakened human being. Because in terms of location, Samael says, a conscious person has no problems to unfold in their astral body. A person who is awake has no worries about unfolding. It leads us into a condition where we can unfold. So we must learn to develop the habit of this key while we are here in this vigil state, in the state of pistis. Because as we put this into use while we are awake, we start creating a habit. And because, well, so far we are creatures of habit, we bring those habits into the dream state. And when you are sleeping, your consciousness starts doing that when you're sleeping as well. And suddenly you find yourself awake in the astral plane. A conscious person has no problems to unfold in their astral body. This is what Samael tells us. So, that being said, suddenly you find yourself awake in the astral plane. Then what? Because we must know what to do. Samael says the time has come for students to learn to enter those sanctuaries of the astral plane at will so they can receive direct instruction from the great master. The time has come to abandon theories and go into practice. So let us show you, tell you, what is it that you must do so that you can walk into these temples? In our benefit, the masters of Mercury have been already teaching humanity to unfold in their astral body, and they will help anyone who asks for help. So if you have struggled with unfolding in the astral body, now that we are under this influence of the constellation of Gemini, whether you are a native of Gemini, even better for you, or not, invoke the masters of the constellation of Gemini, these divine beings, angels, archangels, thrones, dominions, powers, etc., so that they can help you unfold consciously in the astral body. Ask for the help, because the masters cannot help unless you ask for it. They cannot intervene because they cannot and will not affect your free will. But if you ask for the help, knock and it will be open. Ask and you will receive. But knowing this, we must learn to enter through the doors of the temple. I'm going to share with you a little bit about that. But let me give you some keys so that you can learn to unfold in the astral body. As you are getting ready to go to sleep tonight, as you're resting comfortably in bed, ideally, have your head pointed towards the north. Align your body in the same direction as the magnetic currents of the planet. Just like Samael says, be like the humble compass. Align yourself to the north. We can start with the mantra Rusti. So as you're laying comfortably on your back, your heels are together, your arms are alongside your body. You are like in the corpse posture, in the dead man's posture. See, resting comfortably on your bed, you relax your body. And you relax your body in a way that no muscle is creating any pressure against that astral body. As your body is relaxed, lull yourself chanting the mantra Rusti. This mantra is not a mantra that you will verbalize. This is silent word. The mantra sounds Rusti. That's the way it sounds. As you breathe, Ru. You exhale, Ti. You inhale, Rus. Exhale, Ti. Lull yourself chanting this mantra with your silent word. And don't worry about the physical body. Don't worry about your physical body. Everybody unfolds every night, whether they want it, like it, or not. This is part of what must happen so that the ethereal body can then restore, regenerate, make the physical body ready for the next day. The ego has to be out. And so we all unfold. We're seeking is to do this consciously. Those moments where you start feeling yourself at that transition between being awake, being asleep, just get up. Don't think that you're going to get up. Don't think that you're getting up. Don't visualize you getting up. Samael says, get up. The same way that you would get up to go get some water. Get up and leave your room. And remember what we do to check if we are in the astral plane. Pull your finger. Because there are less laws. It's a realm of 24 laws, not 48, like what we have here in this dense plane. You can grab your finger and you can pull it, and you will see that your finger will stretch. When you let go, finger is going to come back. You know then that you're in the astral plane. Take a leap, jump with the intent of floating. You will find yourself floating. If you get too excited, like it happens, you will come back in the body, you will awake, say, gotta try again, then do it again. But this is what we do with the mantra Rusti. Rest comfortably on your back, relax the body, and lull yourself to sleep with this mantra Rusti. But this is at night. We are also speaking about creating habits during the day, so the key of discernment. Because the soul continues its dreams from akasia, when the body is asleep, into pistis, the visual state. Make a habit of asking yourself throughout the day, where am I? Am I in my body? If you see something strange, immediately grab your finger, pull it. Take a leap, but don't take a leap for the sake of leaping. Take a leap for the sake of floating. And you will find yourself floating if you are in the astral plane. And once you do that, you can ask your innermost to take you to a Gnostic church. You can ask your innermost to take you to any of these heart temples of any of these planets. The last one that I want to share with you today is this mantra, Omnis Baum Igneus. As you're getting ready to go to sleep and you relax your body, as you do your prayer at night, offering with gratitude, with thankfulness for all the events of the day. Ask your innermost to take you out of the body. And when you find yourself floating in space, you can head towards any one of those temples. That mantra, omnis baum igneus, is a mantra that you can verbalize as you are resting comfortably in bed. We tell you that it brings a beautiful, wonderful, harmonious vibration throughout the centers of your body. Omnis Baum Igneus. Notice that G, scratch it with your throat. That's the mantra omnis baum igneus. So you find yourself out of the body. Then what? Some people choose to just stay around the house. Some people choose to try to go somewhere. They get excited, come back into the body. Once you are out of your body, give yourself an opportunity. Ask your innermost to take you to any of these sidereal temples. And if you find yourself in the astral plane, and you are in the living room of your house, in your backyard, you find yourself in some field, start walking in concentric circles. Concentric circles intending to reach the heart temple of a certain star. What will happen is that the environment is going to change. Suddenly, you may be seeing some kind of landscape. All of that is going to change. And you will suddenly find yourself at the doors of the temple. When you are at the doors of the temple, all the temples are guarded. There are great masters that are always guarding the doors of all these temples. And when you're there, you must offer a salutation. You must offer the words of passage to walk into the temple itself. With reverence, cross your arms, the right one over the left. And you can bow to the right and say the magic word of passage, Jakin, and bow to the left, say the magic word of passage, Boas. So you can present yourself to the temple, see the guardian, cross your arms, Jakin, Boas. What happens if you get there and you don't see the guardian? Knock on the door. Knock and it will be open. Knock 3 times. If they don't open, knock 3 times 3. And the guardian may look at you, say, who are you? What do you want? What are you looking for? Be ready to answer. And after you answer, he may say, what are the words of passage? Cross your arms. Jakin Boas. He may say inferential peace. And to that, you reply the same, the 3 fingers, inferential peace, and then you walk into the temple. As you walk into the temple, you can take 7 steps. These 7 steps will take you to a particular place where you will be able to kneel before the genii of the temple. There may be several masters in charge who may be there. And as you get there, you can do an Egyptian prostration. Put your hands together and you rest your forehead on the backs of your hands. They may ask you, what are you there for? What do you need? Divine Master, we're here to receive some teachings. If it is your will. You see, you can say that. Ask for what you need. Ask from the depth of your heart. And if the genie grants it, they will say, granted. And you may receive some teaching. If there is something that you need, some healing, somebody who is ill and you would like to ask for help for them to heal, if there is a situation in your life, whether it is a situation in your marriage, with your children, with your parents, anything that you feel that you may need, you can ask. And if they grant it, they will say, granted. Once they say granted, you can ask for a chorus. Divine Master, may we have a chorus of angels. At that moment, those masters will make a signal, and the armies of the voice, what is known as the Sabaoth, they will sing and help materialize what has been granted. It is also possible that they say no. And if they say no, we accept the decree of the law, and we can walk out and continue. This is what you do once you are out of your body. And Samael says, when the disciple has already practiced astrotheurgy, the stellar gods accept them as a lego. Lego, if we translate that roughly, it means I study. The one who studies, the student. And they will give the lego a gray tunic, and they will give the lego a staff. It's a staff that is like a staff of wood, like a staff of cedar. That tunic, that is the tunic of the esoteric astrologist, the authentic alchemist, the ineffable theurgist. That is the tunic of the lego. And as they grow in wisdom, they start receiving higher degrees and their tunic changes, but that is a story for some other time. All right, let's go ahead and do the practice of Gemini. Samael says, with these exercises, you will awaken your consciousness. Let's take a look at the practice of Gemini.
All right, to do the daily exercise for Gemini, we're going to need some space to lie down on the floor or on a bed. And we'll be doing 5 inhalations and 5 exhalations. On the inhale, we're going to imagine the light that formerly accumulated in the larynx will now act on the bronchi and the lungs. As we inhale, our arms and our legs will extend out to the sides. And as we exhale, the legs and the arms will move back towards the body, similar to the motion like when you make a snow angel, or in that picture there in the slide. So, and of course, like in all of our zodiac practices, we'll begin by entering the principal star of that constellation and invoking the genii for help. So let us start. We're going to face the east, sitting upright. So relax the body. Relax the mind. Concentrate on your heart. Praying to our internal Father. My Father, my God, please transport yourself to the heart temple of the constellation of Gemini. And once there, make the salutations to the guardians of that temple. Cross your arms right over the left. Bow to the right, saying Jakin. Bow to the left. Boaz.
Boaz.
Take the 7 sacred steps and kneel down inside of the temple. We're going to now invoke the elders of Gemini, Stagras and Sarael, and the ruler Raphael. Raphael, Stagras, Sarael. Raphael, Sagras, Sarael. Raphael, Sagras, Sarael. We invoke you in the name of the Christ, by the power of Christ, by the majesty of Christ. Mantra Antia Dauna Sastasa. Om. Shantiya Dauna sa sa sa. Raphael, Sagras, and Sariel, we ask for a treatment. We ask for healing for our lungs and our bronchial system. Help us to awaken consciousness in the astral plane. We ask for your assistance in learning to maneuver our astral body, and with the Jinn sciences, heal us, restore balance, illuminate us. Now we can lay on our back, down on our back. Just take a moment to relax your body. And we're going to do those 5 inhalations and exhalations. Remember, as you inhale, you imagine that light from the larynx that we accumulated during Taurus, dropping down into the bronchi and the lungs, bronchi and the lungs. And we move our arms and our legs out. And on the exhale, we bring our legs and our arms back to the body. We'll do this 5 times and repeat it. Inhale 1. Exhale 2. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Thank you, Raphael, Sagras, and Sariel. We offer this work in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and by the most holy and powerful Tetragrammaton. May it be according to the law and the universal charity, and for the universal charity. Let's do the mantra Aum 3 times, and then we'll follow with the rune Sig to close the practice. Om. 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, Sig. All right. Thank you so much. May you all be well.